Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Emmy. This is day 11 of the 12 days of Yule. If you're jumping in now, the 12 days of Yule is my daily practice around winter time where I take some time to be reflective, to consider what work I may want to continue bring in from 2025 into 2026. Think about what feels aspirational. Consider what I may want to either have come to a close, come to a culmination. Consider what new seeds I want to plant so then new opportunities can come through. How I arrange this is every day has a different focus, so I can think about goal setting for the new year holistically. Our lives are never one thing. If you do want to follow along, if you are not terribly witchy, that's perfectly fine. You could treat this more like a writing exercise. You could save it all for one go if you'd rather have your 1st of January be more of a reflective, meditative time. If you're a practitioner, then you could follow along. You could save this all for the 1st, for New Year's Eve, do it all in one day, one and done. You could also treat this like witchy pre-work, more like journaling. Think about what may be the areas of focus. Consider lunations, the upcoming eclipses, solstices, equinoxes, all those different factors, and just figure out what works best for you in your practice. It's going to vary from person to person, from year to year. With this being the 11th day of the 12 days of Yule, because we are following the 12 house system of astrology to guide this process, the 11th day is an 11th house day. The 11th house in astrology is about community, friends, good fortune, and one's hopes, wishes, and ambitions. It's really about where groups of people come together, collectives, communities, societies, a little bit of a parallel with the 7th house. The 7th house may feel a lot like the 11th house, but the 7th house is a bit more about one-to-one partnerships versus the 11th house is more one-to-many, you and the collective, you as a part of a group. And if we're considering the axis between the two houses, the 11th house is opposite the 5th house. They do both have this area of focus around self-expression. The 5th house is a bit more individualistic, the self-expressing their singularity, their uniqueness, their individuality. The 11th house is a bit more fixated on self-expression being modified by the demands of other people, about what the group needs you to be bringing your own unique gifts to. In a healthy 11th house situation, it is really more so about what you are bringing to the community to be shaped by it in a positive way. The downside is if you have trauma around it, it feels a little bit culty. Something to consider as we move along if that kind of conjures any of that. And the 11th house is also an Aquarian house. Following traditional astrology, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, not unlike Capricorn. It carries it out differently though. Versus with modern astrology, Aquarius being ruled by Uranus, the planet of upheaval, of change, revolution, innovation, burning things down rapidly so then they could be born anew. New technology, new everything. So it can be overwhelming potentially to consider the Uranian aspects, but I do think that both kind of help point us in the right direction. Aquarius is a trailblazer. Aquarius is humanitarian, caring about the greater good, but also wanting to stand out and to be known for doing something in their own way, not wanting to be undermined for how they go about doing their long-term work. It's very, very curious to think about that mixture of things that we have possible Uranus to consider. We have Saturn in the mix as well, depending on what you subscribe to in your astrological reasoning. And that it does have this opposition between one's personal identity and one's group identity. I think this could be a really important time to consider that around this time of year, and that you've spent time with family. Maybe you have had to go back home. Maybe you went back home and it wasn't supportive. It could be important to consider the highs and lows of whatever groups you are a part of, to think about if you can go about doing things differently in the new year. Maybe you cannot fully eliminate the family time, but it could be possible to look ahead, consider how will you build up your community in the new year? How will you allow for more space and curation of the kinds of things that will be supportive of you, what you're wanting to be surrounded by, and also what you're bringing to that group as well. Because to be healthy, it has to be mutual exchange. As always, consider what is going on with your 11th house. Do you have anything going on in there? Who is the ruler of your 11th house? Do you have any planets in your 11th house? Do you have any major transits going on in your 11th house? I have Jupiter in the 11th house. And you could tell a lot of changes are always going on around me as a part of a community. Do I feel like I'm a part of a community? What is the nature of that community? What do people end up bringing to the table? What do I bring to the table? So it could be interesting to consider what you have natally going on and if there's anything that will be coming down the pipeline. So I will be having my Jupiter return in 2026. Lots of big things possible. And with that, we will jump into the questions for today. What does community mean to you? Do you feel like you have an audience or a community? Because an audience is more so transactional versus a community is built on mutual support and investment. The idea of friend groups, does that feel exciting? Does it feel affirming, perfectly natural? Or does it make you feel intimidated? Does it conjure that trauma like we were talking about before? Do you have friend group wounds that require attention because it's impacting your ability to be a villager, be a community member, be a coven member here and now? Are you holding yourself to standards of friend groups that don't fit your budget, your values, your lifestyle, or your capacity? That's a very real thing, is if other people have the ability to take off and leave, if they have the budget, if they have the ability to dart off and go on a trip on a whim, that can feel like you don't belong. It can feel as though you got to keep up. Instill these feelings of, I have to now sacrifice a lot in order to still be valued by this group. Does any of that come to mind for you? Is the person that you are with the friend group different from where you are anywhere else? And I mean that as you're holding yourself back. Do you feel punished for being yourself in that friend group? I alluded to this when we were talking about one-to-one connections, one-on-one partnerships, but is it time to break up with the friend group? If you belong to a coven, does it feel like a supportive environment, or does it not feel like people can bring their full selves? Does it feel like everyone's spiritual background is respected, that they're able to bring uniqueness to the collective experience, to that mutual exchange energetically? Or is there an increasingly felt sense that there is a right and wrong way to be a witch, to be a magician, to be an occultist? Is there equity spread throughout the group, or is there somebody at the helm? Having a leader is not inherently bad, because life is a lot of work. Maintaining friend groups is a lot of work. It could be great to have somebody who is willing to do the admin, do the planning, the organizing, help kick things off, as long as the we of the group feel as though they're not being bossy, and as long as they feel supported and they're actually enjoying taking that leadership role. It has to be all consensual. Does it feel healthy? Was it actually a truly collaborative process? The thing that does come to mind for me around having a leader is whether or not they have been doing their 10th house work. If they have been doing their work around that leadership, around being a public figure, around being somebody who is steering other people. Have they been doing that kind of shadow work already? Are they using or are they abusing the power? Are they monopolizing your attention and making it feel as though they're the only thing that should be requiring your attention as a spiritual practitioner? And all groups are different. Every coven is going to be different, but it is also important to consider that you still had your own individual practice before entering the equation, being a part of that community, being a part of that coven. I do have to wonder if there is a leader. Were they self-appointed? Are they leveraging one way or another? Are they making you feel as though you're not being devout to them in a sense? Then there might be a problem to consider, to reflect on, and maybe to talk to other people in the group about that you trust. That could be tricky, I know, because if there is any kind of indoctrination that has been going on, it could feel a little bit like you're walking on thin ice, trying to figure out how to have that conversation in the first place. I do think that it is a conversation worth having if you do feel those inklings, if you do have somebody who you can trust. Make it very clear from the beginning, I'm not trying to be shady, I'm not trying to stir the cauldron, but I do also want to acknowledge that I'm feeling weird about things, and here's why. I think that can be beneficial to see if there could be a conversation around power sharing in your coven. Could there be better power sharing in your coven if anything like this is going on, and maybe it has been determined it's not underhanded behavior? Then by all means, see if you can install some pillars, install some criteria, culture of accountability. What would it look like to have a healthy community, to nurture one, to create that? Are you even familiar with what that is? Part of me is like, I do have a better idea now, For a while growing up, that felt like a very novel idea, especially with being a late diagnosed neurodivergent person. I had been masking my whole life without realizing it and knowing that I felt like an alien amongst other people, Googling things to look normal for my entire life until I learned that that's what I was doing to survive. It is a real question, I think, to consider. What does a healthy community look like with doing that work, with that self-acceptance, with getting more knowledge around how your brain works? Is networking a priority for you in 2026? That could also be a little bit tricky. I do think that is part of being a good villager, is considering that mutual care, but that could also mean that there isn't any networking, because so much of networking can be about individual personal advancement over other people. It can feel transactional. It can feel like it is built on artifice. You got to put your best foot forward. And I'm like, your best foot forward could be a lie. So there's that. If you were to create a village, what principles would you want it to be built on? What hopes, dreams, aspirations are you feeling called to sharing with your collective, with your community? Do you feel like you can be vulnerable with them? Do you feel like you could share your gifts, that your contributions are valued by the many? Does it feel like you against the world? If one community feels at odds with you, then how can you lean on community to help reconcile any of the hurt, to smooth things over, or to just even feel at baseline like people are looking out for you? How could you help people co-create with you so that your hopes and dreams don't feel so much like lofty things in the sky, where they could feel more like they're going from idea to action in the new year? Is this where you want to do your intention setting, maybe doing your manifestation work? I clocked this in the previous video. We got to be doing our road opening work if we want these things to really work long term, especially if they're prosperity related, trying to draw in new people, new experiences, things of that nature. In a way, I do feel like this is a ritual that does have road opening as a part of it. But if this feels like the area that you want to develop the most in the new year, especially with how the world, I think it is really important to figure out, how do we make ourselves into a true community? How do we make sure that we do know our neighbors? Again, thinking about this big dream that we have, breaking these things down into smaller workings so then you can do the mundane work of connecting with people, meeting people, linking people up potentially if that ends up being your superpower, connecting with the community, and ultimately applying yourself. The 11th house also is an indicator of membership, societies, organizations, other social groups. Do you feel like you're playing it too safe and you're keeping your gifts from the world, from your community? The biggest reframe that I've ever gotten that I do really appreciate was that you're being selfish by not sharing your gifts with the world, by constantly telling yourself, I'm not good enough, I haven't done XYZ for long enough, so-and-so has more followers. If you keep going down that rabbit hole, holding yourself back, you might be the thing that is blocking you from community. I've clocked this before, that there is the unfortunate experience where maybe it wasn't that someone else gave you the evil eye. Maybe it wasn't that somebody else has hexed you or crossed you. A lot of the times, depending on your placements, how you've lived your life, things that have come up in your life, you could be the one creating the cross conditions for yourself. I am all too familiar with that as somebody with 12 house placements. We'll get into that in tomorrow's video. Another thing I want to note with a true community and creating a village is that you're not always going to like the people in your village. You're not going to like all the people who are in your community potentially, and that's okay. The thing that we are actually striving for is no intentional harm, cutting down on abusive behaviors, rooting out toxicity, having systems of accountability so that we could focus on healing and repairing within the greater community and not succumbing to cancel culture, which really, cancel culture, there's maybe a few occasions where it's been done the right way. More often than not, people, they're skinned alive, they're exposed, and then they apologize. And then we tell them, well, we don't accept your apology. Then we don't want accountability. We want punishment. That is something that I think has to be of consideration as well when you're thinking about your principles, when you're thinking about your values around community. They're not always going to be your besties. That's 7th house stuff. That's 3rd housey, maybe 4th housey, with being close with your family and whatnot. The 11th house is about the greater world and what are you bringing to it? What are you allowing in? And are we creating a culture that is built on longevity, sustainability, and acknowledging that we're not going to love everybody in our community? I don't love some of my neighbors, but when it comes down to it, I make sure they get their packages. They make sure that I get whatever I need. They watch me go to my car to make sure that I'm okay. Last year was an 11th house year for me when it comes to perfection years. That was a big year for me. I decided to apply for the Salem Witchcraft and Folklore Festival. I got in, met so many amazing people, and I still talk to these people. And there are some that I had already met before the festival, and going only solidified our friendship. It just felt so good to feel cared for by different people. And if there was like a hiccup that somebody had, they could talk to the group. We'd figure it all out. If there was a tech issue, we figured out the tech issue. Even knowing that there were two presenters, one was coming in from the southern part of the United States. They flew up, they drove to Canada to go get one of the other presenters. And then they drove back to Salem together. And that is what a community is. Like, that is care. I just felt that deep, heartwarming feeling when I heard that. So much restored faith. There is also a sense of belonging that you feel when you're with your people, in a sense, where you feel like, man, it's great to be with these other occultists, with these other practitioners, researchers, artists. I think it's also really important to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there. You never know what'll work out, to also put your own work in. That's a mindset that I had to overcome in myself, where I wondered, oh, am I good enough to even apply? Other people are so great. Who do I think I am? I had to overcome that. Like, no, I have something to share. I have some good ideas. I hope they think that they're good ideas. I hope that there's room for me. And there absolutely was. And it wasn't even just the presenters that I clicked with. It was amazing to talk to the other attendees, which further solidified that being a part of a community is a deeply nuanced thing. It's a felt experience. It also requires effort on all of our parts to make that happen. Going back to how do we repair? What does accountability look like in group experiences? How can the group figure out how to forgive, how to move towards a solution together? Step out of the us versus them thinking that is constantly weaponized, that we want to put somebody in their place. Having a healthy community, being a healthy community member means trying to confront and to uproot that very kind of mindset. What can you help someone else do? How can you help someone else's dream in the community come to fruition? What do you need from the community to help you shine? We're truly all stronger together when we're working together and not against each other. There truly is plenty of room for all of us. That is all for today's video. I thank you all so much for jumping in for the first time. It is the first video that you're catching in the series. If you are following along, watching all of them, thank you for doing that. That's amazing of you. I do want to take a moment to thank my patrons for sponsoring this video. I want to thank Georgia, Karina, Jess, Laura, The Wowels, and Mallow. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that you all have a good go of these reflection questions. Let me know if this conjures anything for you, and I will see you all tomorrow for our final day of the 12 Days of Yule. Bye for now.